We've got the answers then to the questions on the components of fitness. The first question is, which one of the following shows the correct distances for the multi-stage fitness test and the test for speed? So we're looking at the distances for this, and the correct answer is going to be C, because the distance is 20 meters for the multi-stage fitness test. So it's basically doing a shuttle back and forwards over 20 meters. And the speed test is a 30-meter speed test. Give a practical example where aerobic endurance is important in sports. So just 1 mark available. So we've got to give an example. So the first example you could have given is an activity or event that requires aerobic energy production. And you could have just given an example such as a marathon, a triathlon, and 800 meters. I think if you put something like football, rugby, hockey, netball, might have got the mark. Not sure. I think you should always go with the most obvious answer. So if you pick an endurance-based event, such as marathon, such as a long-distance run, such as 1500 meters, 800 meters, then that's a much safer bet. You could have said, as a couple of other example answers, that to achieve a faster time in any event, and again, you should give an example of an event such as a marathon, or if you had related to football or netball or hockey or rugby or basketball, then if you've explained that in a bit more detail, so remain effective during a game or less fatigue during performance, then that would be enough to get the mark. Reaction time and speed are important fitness components required for a 100-meter sprinter. Define the fitness components of reaction time and speed and explain their importance to a 100-meter sprinter. So it's 4 marks. So we get 1 mark, for example, defining reaction time, and then we get 1 mark for explaining its importance, and then the same for speed as well. So reaction time, the length of time it takes a performer to respond to a stimulus. You don't have to have that word for word, but it probably needs to be pretty close to get the marks. Or the second definition you could have said is the time taken between the onset of a stimulus and the initiation of response. This is important because the quicker the sprinter can respond or react to the gun, the quicker they can get out of the blocks, basically, and it's going to help their acceleration and give them an advantage over their opponents and ultimately more chance of winning the race. Speed is the ability to move quickly, or distance divided by time, you could have said, or rate of change of position with respect to time. Why is this important to a 100-meter sprinter? So basically, the quicker you can run, the more chance you have of winning the race. It's as simple as that. So if you put something along those lines, then give yourself a mark. Identify a suitable test that can be used to assess the stamina of a marathon runner. So there's 2 you could have picked from here, because we're basically looking to measure aerobic fitness and cardiovascular fitness. So it's the multi-stage fitness test, or you could have said the bleep or beep test, also Cooper 12-minute run. Which one of the following is the best practical example of muscular endurance? So we've got 4 options here, and the answer down the bottom, C, is from the mark scheme, and it's saying that a rugby player who sprints from the halfway line to score a try. I think this is a horrible question, really, because in my eyes, that doesn't really require much muscular endurance. It's mainly speed, and over a short period of time. It's only going to take a rugby player a very short period of time to run from a halfway line in order to score a try. I think and most people would probably put an athlete running a 1500-meter race. To me, that requires more muscular endurance, but it's an example of where, unfortunately, some of the exam questions can be very subjective, where more than one answer can be chosen. So I don't really know what else I can say on that question, other than that it's a really horrible question, and I probably wouldn't worry too much if you went with an athlete running a 1500-meter race. Compare continuous training and fartlek training. So it's 2 marks here, and we need to compare both for 1 mark and compare them again for a second mark. So fartlek is a variation of speed, or you could have said speed play. That's what fartlek means, is speed play, whereas continuous is more constant, or you could have said no rest or little rest during continuous training. Fartlek consists of a variety of activities. You could have said cross-country jogging with sprints, different terrains such as hills, whereas continuous, just jogging with no variation or with constant terrain, you could have said. Fartlek includes short and long distance work. So you might have a sprint, for example, followed by a walk, followed by a longer distance run. Whereas, or you could have said different intensities is a good way of describing fartlek, whereas continuous mainly over long distance with a similar intensity and using that aerobic endurance all the time. Outline what is meant by high intensity interval training or HIIT training. So this is basically, it's a 1-mark question. The most obvious answer is it's a training idea in which high intensity periods are alternated with low or moderate intensity intervals. So high intensity periods followed by low intensity intervals, basically. You could have said, though, for a mark, it involves high overload with short rest periods, or it involves repetition of short bursts of anaerobic activity.